Hi out there. I just wanted to jump on here and make a little welcome video today. We've got a new member to the I Hate Samantha Club. Everyone welcome Brett Power. Hi Brett. You're lucky to get in, I tell you. It's standing room only at this point, so to be honest, I often ignore the haters, but I'm going to address Brett's little tantrum and his lies that he put in his live a couple of days ago, because my integrity is very important to me, so I will defend it. And I will set the record straight by playing the call that he refers to, the one he accused me of launching a tirade at him. And you'll hear in that the tirade was most definitely from Brett. So yeah, so stick around for that. Fun times. Okay. I'll also talk about Brett's cases and the legislation and the Health Act as well, and we'll talk about all of that. So, as you're probably aware, Brett's recently lodged a couple of court cases, one against Chris Luxon, one against Ashley Bloomfield. He claims that they significantly and illegally and deceptively changed legislation in the 1956 Health Act in October 21. He says that there's hugely impactful clauses that were added that handed the government special powers to order the detaining and the isolating and quarantining and forceful vaccination of New Zealanders. Brett's charges relate to the fact that he claims that this was done illegally and not subjected to the required parliamentary procedure of all legislation being presented to Parliament, undergoing 3 readings, achieving royal assent and being gazetted, for public disclosure, informing. He began messaging me about this whole issue on the 8th of August. He was adamant that legislation had been changed, amended and inserted, to be more precise, and that he knew what others didn't because he's really good at this stuff. That was his words. He rang me several times and quickly became quite uptight that I wasn't like, yeah, let's go, go put them all in jail. But I said I needed to look at it properly first. There was a lot of documentation that we needed to cross-reference and needed to read the legislation and all that. And there was a lot of hysteria about these special powers at that time going around, and that hysteria was way out of whack, actually. Even though I agree on the premise, the idea that this legislation is a huge violation of human rights, it's really important to have your facts right when you want to bring some opposition. Otherwise it's a waste of time. It just morphs into a bit of a joke very quickly. So a couple of weeks later anyway, Brett said he was travelling to Wellington to file the charges, and that a crowd was going to meet him there. It was going to be really big. And I said, I'm sorry, Brett, I can't come. I was busy. But even so, he notified me that on his way to Wellington from his home in New Plymouth, he was going to be making a diversion through Palmerston North to meet me and show me his court case documents, and he was going to take me out for dinner. It was his shout. So yeah, he called and I was like, okay, I'm interested to see his research anyway, so that's okay. It was the first time I'd met him. I took my son along and I was happy to look through what he thought he'd found. He's really keen for me to do a video to cover the case, but I wasn't quite so keen because I wasn't particularly reassured with what I saw in his documents or what I heard. I asked him if he'd even looked through any previous versions of the Health Act to make sure that these truly were inserted or amended clauses, but he said no, he hadn't done that. He didn't need to do it. He knew what he was doing, he said. He said he'd read the footnotes where it said inserted or amended, but you get that all the time. That can be referring to a bracket or a comma, which is actually most commonly the case. Then, after dinner, he mentioned he didn't have anywhere to stay in Palmy, and I didn't offer my place. And I don't know if there's resentment that I didn't extend hospitality. I don't know. But he wasn't going to come and stay alone with me and my boys. A couple of days later, he then texted me again to ask if he could come and see me on his way home from Wellington, even though Palmy's not on the way from Wellington. He said he had copies of documents to give me and invited me to dinner again. Then he messaged me again a week later saying that he had to drive a friend here to Palmerston North, and messaged me through text and messenger saying he was already here, let's catch up. I didn't respond to those messages. He called again a couple of days later asking when we were going to get cracking with the video to cover his court cases, and I respectfully said that I didn't think it was a good case. I hadn't really had time to examine it properly. And then a couple of days later, he rang again, really agitated at this point, telling me that even the health department posters show that what he's saying is correct. And I said, what health posters are you even talking about, Brett? And he sent them to me saying, you haven't seen these Ministry of Health posters? Do you not know anything? He's swearing his head off, scoffing at me. And I said, Brett, these are from the Health Forum, not the Health Department. And he said, no. Well, when I finally convinced him it was from the Health Forum, he said, oh, well, the Health Forum is associated with the Health Department, it will be. And I said, no, it's a freedom group. He wants me to follow his lead on this, but he's trying to convince me that the Health Department would put out posters like that. I mean, of course they wouldn't. It doesn't even make sense. These posters, by the way, are very misleading. Obviously, this legislation is an egregious violation of human rights, but the suggestion in these posters and the clear accusations in Brett's court cases are that the new powers that have been granted, but even the including the use of force clause has been there for decades. The same, it hasn't changed. A few days later, tried to meet me again in a fourth trip to Palmy in 2 weeks, 3 hours from where he lives. So 11th of September, that was, asking if I wanted him to stop in and drop more documents off. I said, no thanks, I think I'm good, I've got enough. But he made the trip anyway, and I didn't meet him because I hadn't agreed to, and I can't remember if it was that one or another one, but he called me in the evening saying that he had decided to stay the night. He was going to have to sleep in his car, but at this point I didn't even want him to have my address, which he asked for, to drop off more documents in my letterbox, but I didn't give it to him. He had escalated by now, saying I had to do this video. He said it's of dire importance, and that he's going to be at the Palmy Library the whole of the next day, and basically he's going to wait for me to show up, which I didn't. I had, by that point, thoroughly read every document that he'd given me, examined the court case, cross-referenced every clause to the legislation and previous versions, of which there are many previous versions. It took me barely an hour of doing that. It's not that hard to do, to see that the case was completely flawed, absolutely baseless. It's a work of fiction. Because the main premise of Brett's case is a series of clauses from sections 70, 71 and 71A that he claimed showed that Luxon and Bloomfield had acted with deception, claiming that they had statutory authority that they didn't have. He said they claimed this authority as a result of Bloomfield illegally making amendments and insertions in October 21, adding these special powers at that time without any procedure. He itemised those clauses that he believed were added in his court case, and that's pretty much the totality of his court case. But all the points in Brett's affidavit, all the clauses that he mentioned, are virtually word for word the same, always been in the legislation as far back as versions of the Health Act are available to view online, like all the way back to 2007, I checked. The only amendments are insignificant words here and there or slight format change, and the only insertions are pretty insignificant restructuring of like a previous clause. Brett seems to have perhaps assumed that the words in the footnotes meant that the whole clauses had been inserted, and so then he raced to the "this is illegal" place, because there was no gazetting at the time for the changes. So this is precisely why I said to him the first time he came to see me that he really should check previous versions before lodging the case. But he just said, no, I don't need to do that. And I think I gently said it like 3 times, and he got quite indignant, saying, he knows this stuff, he knows what he's talking about, and you don't, Sam. And he said, I remember him saying, we'd know if this legislation was in there before. So there's a lot of legislation we don't know about, But anyway, he made a big deal too of the words transitional exemption, as if they'd tried to skirt around, procedure by using that term. But when amendments don't alter legislation, whether it's primary or secondary, they are exempt, actually, from these legislation procedures. That's actually in the Legislation Act itself. You're not going to go through 3 readings and royal assent for a comma. That'd be a bit silly. Like I said, this legislation been the same for decades, but the WHO's declaration of a fake, a public health emergency of international concern, is, however, a new instrument, which they do intend to set up as basically giving our Prime Minister the mandate under international law via the hideous pandemic treaty and the amended IHRs to declare a state of emergency. But that'd be done under the Civil Defence Emergency Act 2002. It could be deemed a pandemic, an epidemic, an outbreak, or even a pre-pandemic. Yeah, I know. I think that's when Ethel down at number 18 sneezes. I don't know. That's when special emergency powers under the Civil Defence Emergency Act, state of emergency, it's then that special emergency powers are activated, as described in section 70, 71, 71A. Preventative treatments, yes, it is there in the legislation. Preventative treatments, otherwise known as fake vaccine bioweapons, can then be prescribed, as well as isolation, detainment, otherwise known as imprisonment, until such preventative treatments, otherwise known as poisons, are administered. But there's nothing there about forcefully vaccinating. Although the detainment until preventative treatments are administered clauses could see it interpreted that way, I guess. It does say in section 71A that use of police force is permitted to be used to help the medical officer exercise or perform their emergency powers. But like I said, the fundamental thing with Brett's case is that this legislation's been exactly the same for decades. It wasn't put in by Bloomfield. And and to be honest, at such a time, that's when many other documents and legislation that have been lying dormant, in a dusty government filing cabinet somewhere could suddenly spring to life, like the Epidemic Preparedness Act 2006, the National Health Emergency Plan 2015, the New Zealand Health Plan, the New Zealand Pandemic Plan, the Civil Defence Emergency Act 2002, and of course the 1956 Health Act, all prepared well in advance for such a time as this. But Brett sent me many more messages over the next few days till on the 16th, about 2 weeks ago, whenever it was. I thought I better make myself clearer to him. So I sent him a short voice clip on Messenger, politely and apologetically saying I wouldn't be doing the video or supporting the case because it's getting the people's hopes up for something that's not even based in truth. But then 2 days ago in his live, he said that when I told him this, that I abused him, telling him his case was just rubbish and I just trashed it, and not true. It's just not true at all. This is actually what I did say. I'll play it from a couple of short Messenger voice clips.
Hey Brett, I'm so sorry I haven't gotten back to you, and I know that sounds a bit trite, but promotion of something that wouldn't work is not good, it's false hope and all that sort of thing. So anyway, I hope you can understand in a way why I felt like I couldn't follow through with the story.
He seemed okay with this, gave it a thumbs up, and so I thanked him for his understanding, and that was my next message, and then there was no more discussion on the subject after that.
Thanks, Brett. Thanks for your understanding. You just keep, you don't need me to tell you, but just keep being the awesome fighter that you are and the inspiration that you are.
So, yeah, hardly the hostility that Brett said that I expressed. That was a lie. Brett is just angry because, well, I didn't give him his video, but more so because I discovered what he should have when he refused to look at it. But even so, I never gave him a hard time about it, and I would never have said anything publicly until what he said about me and Counterspin, and then the ensuing criticism of us that's been deliberately and unfairly whipped up yet again, simply because I've done what good journalists do and stuck to truth. But seeing Brett has dragged me into this Colosseum, I will take the opportunity to say it straight. I won't support things that I know are not integrous, that are just going to string people along just to satisfy someone's ego. No, I'm not going to do that. If it was true and sound, then of course I'd support it. But it's just another distraction, yet another misguided drain on people's finances. And, when I looked at the comments underneath his tantrum, his lies, live, people were talking about setting up a donation page to fundraise for these cases, for Brett to receive donations. But receiving donations for these cases would actually be dishonest. These drains on our finances, our time, our energy, because he's calling people up and down from Wellington, and on our morale, our morale is especially very important, and it shouldn't be trifled with. It's really important to look after our morale. But we just keep getting captured by false hopes and pointless, impotent ventures, which we dive into, invest ourselves in time and time again, instead of potentially effective ventures. We've got another legal case circulating all over New Zealand social media at the moment from a wonderful woman, the Tauranga lady. Just like Brett, I would totally support her as a person, but again, there's claims being made here that are just not able to be substantiated. There's decisions being published that have been made in courts that are not recognised and will be of no consequence, but are being presented as if they're really something, and people are like, woohoo, what a victory, she's beaten the entire New Zealand deep state. No, she hasn't. But she's going to get trillions of dollars, Sam. Didn't you see the documents? She's going to fix everything. No, she's not. I doubt she'll even get $10, let alone the trillions in the document. And this is foolish, dangerous delusion. We have to keep our heads about us here. And I've got to be honest, I find it a tad deceptive. Like the stamps on her judgment with the High/District Court Tauranga and the publishing on publicnotices.com, as if that's, some official thing, but it's just a privately owned website. And Brett's case, he knows he's stuffed up, right? And it'll therefore be thrown out. It will not get past the front desk, but he won't admit it, and he keeps taking the support, leading people on. But for what? It's not fair. It's not fair on people. We're sincere about this war, and it's not fair to get people's hopes up when you know that what you have is not even real. It'd be different if it actually had a chance, but yeah, Brett's case, it's like, it's like me suddenly declaring that I'm charging Jacinda with, I don't know, indecent exposure down at my local playground. I might not like her, and I might believe that she does belong in jail, but it doesn't mean you can go around charging people with things they haven't done. You can't just throw them in jail because you think they should be there, and because you got an angry mob of people with pitchforks standing behind you. It's just not how it works. All we get out of these constant freedom movement roller coaster rides, like up, 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 and then down, and then side to side and around and up again, and all we get is motion sickness, vertigo, till we're all screaming, get me the hell off this thing. The net result of these continuing failures is that we just become more discouraged, more despondent, and true depression begins to hang over us, threatening to set in and bring a what's the point mentality. Give up, with it, which all only aids in our pacification. Not to mention the loss of our credibility that we suffer because of these things. Brett said in his live that the government's got helicopters, drones that are stalking him. And just the other day, Brutal Q, I think it was, posted something from that guy from the geoengineering page. What's his name? Zane, I think. Who's also claiming that the government regularly sends choppers to hover over his house and beam him full of stuff, because of his page. No. That's not how they do it. They've got much cheaper and easier options than that, like just taking your page down. Credibility is important, and if we want to reach the wider population, we're suffering continual loss of ground in our quest to get the truth out of this echo chamber that we're in, and this kind of stuff just doesn't help. So, I hope that we can stop this spreading and depending on false hope. We have to stop putting our faith in emotive actions and start putting them into smart things. Stop putting our faith in Zionists who are protected by angels from assassins' bullets, or in messiahs that are going to fall from the sky on a white horse. We have to make it so that what we want to see fall from the sky instead rises up in us. We need to stop fantasizing about magic bullets like common law that one day might actually hit their mark. This government, under their assumed parliamentary sovereignty, doesn't care about the law. It proved that in 1986. They write above the law, whether you spell that L-A-W or L-O-R-E. And further proof is in the fact that crime, lying, treason, it's all paid very well for them for many decades, for the very same traitors that many of you still believe are on your side deep down, and who you still think you might be able to bring around by just one more petition, one more submission, or one more march. It's not going to happen. What it comes down to ultimately, this war, this victory we're after, is that they have the monopoly on the use of threat and force, and so we therefore have to bend to their will to some degree. But that has to stop. That subjugation is preventing us from organised, effective resistance, which we damn well could achieve. We could. Yes, they target any would-be leaders, and the rest of us, we sit back and wait, see what happens to them before we take action. And then we don't take action because of what happened to them. But we cannot let them keep us down that easily. The cost is too great. And, whether we like it or not, hang on one second, I just need a drink. I'm talking a lot. We do have to wake up to the fact that there are many on our own side who are also working vigilantly against us to make sure that the wobbly middle stays large and wobbly, and if anything, gets larger and flabbier. Because the last thing this government wants is a population that's rocking a six-pack, that actually starts to grow some muscle. That would be an actual threat to their tyranny. Most of us are well-meaning, some are a bit misled, of course, it's totally natural. We're learning, but we can't go off like stroppy children just because someone points something out. And start throwing around movie concept names like black-pilled, It's someone who dares to deal in reality. Anyway, I've completely gone off subject. Back to the story. What happened with Brett? Apologies. Okay, right. I told him many times that I support him, right, as a person. Please don't take my reluctance to cover this case personally, because I had covered another of his cases a while ago. But he did take this very personally. He yelled at me and, I had it all wrong. It was like, I didn't know what the F I was talking about. And this business he's thrown out about a revoked 2007 Health Act is pretty odd, I've got to say. You can just go back a couple of years, 2019 Health Act, and you can see the very same clauses. They are there. They weren't inserted in 21 by Bloomfield. Anyway, so when he rang me again a few days ago, I gently mentioned that I had double-checked my scrutiny of the previous versions and that the other legislation he detailed in his affidavit hadn't been changed in 2021, apart from tiny details that didn't affect legislation, so didn't need procedure. So there was no crime. He vehemently disagreed, saying, I know it's totally all new. He got really angry. I calmly said, I don't want to argue, Brett. Maybe just go have a look at it for yourself. He said he would. Call me back the next day, to show me where I'd gone wrong. But he didn't call. And so I called him a couple of days after that. Instead, he didn't answer. So I tried the next day when he did answer. So that's a grand total of 2 calls from me in this whole thing, and 1 unanswered. So, but many from him. But still, his words in his live 2 days ago was that I had harassed him all the time, that I'm pursuing him, persisting and hassling him, is what he said. That I think people have to listen to me because I demand that they do. That I raved at him, abused him, that I need to see a doctor, that I got an unrestricted phone to connect him. Didn't happen. And that in that call that I launched into a tirade against him. In our roughly 4-minute call, I think it was, I pretty much got, "Hi Brett, nice day," out before he just went off. I couldn't get a word in. And so about 2 minutes later, when I asked him if he'd had a chance to look at the previous versions of the Act yet, he actually got quite threatening and said that I wanted to ruin his case and he wasn't going to let me do that. So I thought, I think I need to record this, which I very seldom do, but I could tell he was going to go public about me. Don't worry, if you call me, I'm not going to record you. It's just, I just kind of got the feeling that I needed to. Yeah, because he's said that I'm the one who went on a tirade, I will play that call. It starts at halfway into the call. That's when I click record. But he had been yelling the whole time up to there, so you haven't missed much. And believe it or not, at this point, he's actually calmed down quite a bit. So, yeah, here you go.
Making people aware. They don't tell me shit like that.
The case is based on the legislation being changed,
right?
but it wasn't changed.
I don't have time for this shit.
I did try to talk
Tell
to
me
you.
what you want to say. Put it in writing, bulletproof. You're miles out of the picture. You haven't even looked at what I've done.
So
you don't know what I'm taking this case on.
Yeah, I do. You sent me the case.
Fucking clue, have you?
Yeah, you sent me the case and I read it all through. It's based on the legislation being changed in October 2021 and it not being gazetted and not going through parliamentary procedure when it didn't need to be, because the only things that have been changed is about one word.
Don't talk to me. I don't want to hear it.
You don't want to hear it? You don't
In
want to hear it?
writing, send it to me with the
It's not my
of
responsibility.
everybody's time.
What's
And I've
wasting
got 20
people's
other
time
people doing the same fucking shit.
is
And
doing
those
a
20
case.
other people would never get
What-
off their asses if they know so much. Why don't they do something? There's 10 other lawyers telling me 10 different fucking stories.
Because
but
there's
no
no-
one will have a go.
No one's,
Just me.
there's no
So
case.
you write it down there, so
No one, that was your responsibility before
Mate,
you went public saying that the
Mate,
legislation
you're
was
just talking
changed
shit.
and
You're
it
talking
wasn't,
shit.
but it wasn't
Write
changed.
It down, mate. If
No,
you've
I
got
don't
a
need to
point
write it.
make, fuck
It's yours.
off,
And
okay? Can't put it in
if
writing.
you're going to continue,
Don't harass me and tell me to give up.
I'm not harassing you. I asked you because we've both discovered that
I'm
no
not talking
legislation's
about it,
been
okay?
changed.
No.
That no
Put it
legislation's
in
been
bullet
changed.
points, so there's no more
No,
bullshit.
I have already put it to
What
you.
you're saying at the moment. All you people telling me this shit.
Well, you
You
should have
fucking
done.
write it down. Show me where I'm wrong.
I
I'm
have showed
waiting,
you.
mate.
I have in
Send it to
person.
me. I bet
In
you
person.
fucking can't.
I have
okay?
showed you exactly
you
where you're
can't.
wrong. I've told
Go
you that.
ahead and show me,
And
mate.
there's no point talking to you, Brett, because you just shout over people. But every single version of the Health Act
See you
from
later.
20.
So this is a guy that I spent many hours making another video for months ago in his case against Andrew Little, as well as starting up a Buy Me a Coffee page for him, advertising it, platforming it, Counterspin and everywhere, raising him thousands of dollars, of which I took not a cent. He got it all, and I was happy to do that for him. But this new case wasn't sound, so I couldn't support it. And I don't deserve to be publicly slandered and lied about for taking that position. That's my choice to make if I want to take that position. And he may come out soon. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes out and says it's the state, it's a corrupt government that's caused this case to fail. But no, it's just not true. It's his completely faulty information and his refusal to listen to those who warned him that this could potentially get a bit embarrassing for him down the track, because they cared about him, which is hand on heart why I tried to warn him. He, in one of his videos, that reached almost 100,000 views, he's presenting this information as incontrovertible. So yeah, it could get a bit awkward, but it's no big deal. We're all in this together. But what's not okay is to slander people, throw mud at them, try and deflect from the truth of what you've done by taking them down. I've had it from so many. It's like standard procedure. And the only mental health issue I have is this crazy idea that I've been under that we were adults. No, Billy TK in his video and article that he put out saying he was giving me counselling sessions for my mental health issues. When there were no mental health issues apart from his. And I don't recall any counselling sessions, Billy. Billy, if you're watching, help me out here. Were they before or after I refused to give you what you pushed many other women to give you while you're on the road? And of course, there's the Jezebel and homewrecker lies from Destiny and Co. You see, that's what these men, especially, seem to do to try and shut up a strong woman. If they can't destroy the power of your message, they go for the messenger. She's either mentally unwell or a slut. She's a homewrecker or she's unhinged. Either one. It's pathetic. And they don't worry about evidence. Little details like facts. They just throw it around and hope some of it sticks. I did read a while ago, though, that on a more positive note, a comment by Brian Tamaki himself that he was retiring from politics because Counterspin and that bloody Samantha Edwards has destroyed his political career. Well, considering the 13 million, probably much more, that he and his mate raked in from the COVID scam and the slime of paedophilia that literally drips from the walls of his cult, then yeah, that comment actually made me very happy to read. He's not going to try and weasel his way back into Parliament. Excellent. That's results. Which is why we should be doing what we're doing, for results, not to sow false hope or 15 minutes of fame. I'm not suggesting that's what it is with Brett. I'm just there's very few, it seems, that are truly willing to stand for truth in this world and make the necessary sacrifices. It's a shame, but it's how it's always been, actually. I guess nothing's new in that sense. It actually makes me think of a painting that I did for my son for his 21st. It was captioned, "There are many voices. They may be powerful, they may be influential, they may be persuasive, they may even be in unity, but they're still wrong. Therefore stand, even if you're standing alone." I'm glad I painted that. I don't think my son's even looked at it since. He couldn't give a toss, but I imbibed those words as I painted them. So I think they've helped me more than him. I homeschooled him and I'm homeschooling again. And people don't realize the workload of all of this. They say, you need to make a video about this and I want it on my desk by tomorrow morning, kind of like what happened with Brett. But it's a lot of work, which I do for the right reasons, completely unfunded. And I often turn myself inside out in the support of others or for a truth that needs to be shared. And I consider that a privilege.
I'm not moaning.
It's not a burden. But no matter how hard it does get, trolls, I'm speaking to you here, you're deluded if you think that I'll let your stupidity get me down, or your slander or your defamation that you continually spread simply because I didn't jump when you said jump, or I didn't agree with you about something, or I knew that I knew what I was talking about and I wasn't a wallflower about it, or I dared to tell the damn truth about a politician or an astroturfer or a charlatan or a bishop or a court case. And I will continue to speak and act with honesty and with courage, whatever the consequences may be. So bring it on. Anyway, Brett, I do so hope you've enjoyed your welcome video. One of the special perks of club membership, apart from that, there's not really a lot of other benefits that I can think of, I don't think. Sorry. I really should do something about that. Start up a reward system or something, like Hater of the Month or something. Anyway, like I said, it's good you got them when you did, because, you know, as I said at the start of this video, and I'm not saying that you're not special, Brett, but it is a big club, and it is, standing room only at this point. And this time next year, it could well be a take a number and join the queue down the street kind of situation. So on that note, let me put it out there. If you're wanting a spot, spaces are filling fast, so you better get in quick.